text messages filed in a separate lawsuit show Trump's attorney Sidney Powell organized a visit to the Coffee County election offices. What do we know about that part of the story?
Yeah, we've known for a while that Coffee County was under the microscope, what happened down there. It's a rural Georgia county, a very deeply conservative Trump country down there. It was not a very close election. But we know that a team of Trump supporters and data analysts they had hired entered the Coffee County Elections Board meeting, spent hours in there copying voting data. Their entrance was caught on security surveillance. That data was distributed to conspiracy theorists in the county, pro-Trump conspiracy theorists. So we know that's under the microscope. We're not, of course, sure if that will be involved in the indictment, but we know that Fani Willis and her investigators, her team of investigators, have been closely looking at what happened in Coffee County.
When I asked one of our other legal analysts, Lisa Rubin, what this indictment might look like, they described it as chapters, that instead of laying out one linear big narrative, they're going to take this piece by piece. I wonder, when you look at these text messages in this separate lawsuit, if you have any sense of where they might factor in those indictment chapters.
You're talking about the text messages themselves. Yep. I think the Coffee County narrative is, as your other legal guest explained to you, sort of part of a number of overlapping conspiracies. We used to think about what happened after the 2020 election as successive stories. And we know now through the federal indictment, through the January 6th committee hearings and other evidence that actually there were a number of sort of overlapping conspiracies that meet in sort of one big Venn diagram. I expect that that's how the Georgia indictment will look. There were a number of people working together and separately on different elements of the plot with the overlying objective to grant the presidency to Donald Trump illegitimately at the end of the day, Alicia.
Greg, you have Trump running an attack ad against DA Willis in the Atlanta market. I'm not going to make our audience watch it. Talk us through what we know about security at the courthouse, how officials in Atlanta are preparing, what it is that you are watching for.
We know the former president has tried to undermine and undercut and destabilize this investigation from the get-go, as well as the other investigations. We know that the DA has talked openly about the threats she's faced, the racial epithets, the other slurs hurled against her. We know that she's under intense security. There's security barricades around the courthouse. There's streets shut down. There's staffers who are working virtually starting last week. We also know there's a number of other measures being taken right now that they don't want to talk about because they don't want to, give it away to those who might seek to incur harm on her.
Lisa, NBC asked former President Trump yesterday, I'm sure you saw it, if he intended to overturn the 2020 election, and his snarky response was, the answer to that. And I wondered, as I watched that, given the protective order and so much more, what prosecutors might make of that remark.
That remark is hard to make something out of, right? It's like the Rorschach test of political responses. You see in it what you want to see in it. If you are inclined to believe that President Trump intended to steal or overturn the election, you saw it one way. And if you believe that President Trump was solely trying to vindicate the real result of the election, which is to prevent it from being stolen from Democrats, you saw what you wanted to see into it there. I don't think that the response comes close to violating either the terms of the protective order, which really is about how you deal with evidence of the case, or even President Trump's conditions of release, which more broadly cover witness intimidation, tampering with the jury pool, or other attempts to obstruct the administration of justice. However, do I think that his renewed focus on President Biden and somehow insinuating that Joe Biden is behind the effort to prosecute him when all evidence is to the contrary could get him in trouble? I do, and I'll be watching to see how his social media communications evolve over the next days and weeks, particularly given that his lawyer, John Lauro, promised Tanya Chutkan in court last week that his client would abide both by the conditions of release and whatever protective order she entered, Alicia.